One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996.
Do you find when there's a head coach who maybe has had a couple of years of coming up short from a success standpoint, wins and losses, is it harder to have those conversations about where the program is? And like the term sandbagging comes to mind, and that's a really crude way of saying, are they as thorough and forthright with their thoughts about their program as maybe they should be or you want them to be? Is that a challenge?
I think it's always a challenge, but if you're around it enough and you're at the games and you're present and you can tell a lot about teams with just body language. I mean, are the kids engaged? Are they having fun? Are they pulling for each other? Certain things just feel right. And on the flip side, certain things, when you see it, they don't feel right. And so when they don't feel right, I think that's when you have to ask questions. And it's not a situation where you're doubting or second-guessing coaches, but you want to be. If you have a question about something, I've always believed you just confront it head on, because there may be something to it, there may not be anything to it. And you certainly don't want, as an athletic director, to be wondering kind of what's going on. You've got to be blunt, and it's tough conversations, but they're honest conversations, and that way the coach kind of knows where you are. And so there shouldn't be any surprises, and if there's frustration, you don't want to wait until you're going through the season end report and say, back on February the 10th, I was really upset with X, Y, Z, and then you're talking about it 4 weeks later.
Mm-hmm.
I think the coach would want to know right then, why didn't you say something then? So that's something that I've tried to do better, is when I see something that irritates me, I want to talk about it, because I may be worried about nothing, but I may bring something up to a coach that they are not aware of, or they're blind to that certain element or that certain problem. So I just feel in just dealing with it right then, and it may be a tough conversation, but at least you feel better about it, and it's not lingering when you go to sleep at night about where's that person coming from.
I always like to ask athletic directors and, you guys, when you're at a contest, there's hands to shake. There's other people you want to engage with and build relationships with who are there as well. But how do you prefer to actually watch a game? Like, do you try to sit somewhere where you can see the entire bench at one time? Do you try to be at a place where you're somewhat by yourself to observe in a really in-depth fashion that type of body language you just discussed?
Oh yeah, I mean, I understand the meeting and greeting part of that, and that's why pregame and halftime, those give you opportunities. But when the event's going on or when a game's going on, I'm a fan, but I also want to observe certain things that might be important to me at that certain time. So I prefer to kind of get alone by myself. It's very difficult to do in some environments. There's no place to hide, like in Stegman Coliseum. There's not a lot of places to hide or just get off by yourself. But I do prefer to deal with the fundraising piece or the friend-raising piece away from competition, because I want to try to focus on certain things that might help us get better or help me understand why certain things are happening or why they're not happening.
So managing expectations externally is certainly a huge part of your job as well, with a passionate fan base like Georgia's. How do you think about dealing with, I've heard a lot of your peers use the terms individuals with affluence and influence. Some of those go hand in hand, some don't.
Right.
How do you manage the expectations of the most important donors in your portfolio? And maybe that boils down to the sports of, football, men's basketball, women's basketball, baseball, that sort of thing. How do you prepare yourself for those conversations and think about how to frame it?
Wow. I mean, that's a broad question. I think one of the things when you have sports that are struggling, people can communicate in so many ways so quickly. Whether it's during, I'll get emails or a text during an event on what's going on, why is this happening, and I'd like to hold on to some of those if they're in the first quarter of a football game, and respond after the game. So I think the immediacy there is causes angst in our profession. Everybody's engaged in so many different sports that certain individuals have a passion for some sports over other sports. And I think even in responding, you have to be very careful in how you respond to emails, because you try to be careful with the media, but if you're responding to an email to a fan or a donor or a booster, you never know where that response could end up. And so it could be cut and pasted and inserted so many areas. So I'm kind of paranoid to a certain degree on how I respond, and with open record laws in the state, you've just got to be very careful what's in the public domain. So a lot of times a phone call is probably the best way to handle things instead of an email or a text or something of that, or a letter. Gosh forbid you write a letter. I mean, I can't think of the last time I actually wrote a letter. I've written a lot handwritten, but I can't remember the last time Sharon has prepared a letter, unless it had to deal with something from a legal standpoint or a contract or things like that. But unfortunately, we're not able to maneuver like we were maybe 10 years ago in how we communicate and how we explain things. But when you have passionate fans, the least little thing can upset people. And it's like one of my mentors, Norm Carlson at the University of Florida, used to say, it's never as good as it seems, it's never as bad as it seems. It's probably somewhere in the middle. So if you can just maintain that mindset and really focus on the student athletes, how is their life? How is their experience going? Are you attentive to their needs? And it could be as easy as attending a SAC meeting. I mean, I've go to every SAC meeting unless I'm pulled away for a university event or I'm out of town on university business. But just having that connection with them, I think, is critically important as well.
You mentioned a little bit about the challenges of what athletic directors are really called to do, and I tend to see this juxtaposition of revenue generation and the challenges that come with revenue generation, but also, at the end of the day, developing, graduating student athletes. How can we tell that story better for, a 25-year-old who's an assistant director or director of marketing or director of compliance at any institution out there about the challenges of being AD, but truly why you're doing it? It seems like that's an interesting combination of, responsibilities these days as an AD.
It is, and you're not going to get any help from the mainstream media. We all know what they're reporting on and the reasons they report on it and things of that. So you're not going to get any help there. So we have to drive everybody to our website, and we have to push out information to our donors, which we have 16,000 members in the Hartman Fund, which is the main driver for football, as well as basketball enhancement fund. So we try to push out to our donor base as much as we can, as often as we can, about all the good news, because all the bad news is going to be in the public domain anyway with the media. So there's so much more great things happening on college campuses across the country, and that don't get the recognition or the appreciation it deserves. And so a lot of it's just up to us to tell our story. And at the end of the day, the best stories are on graduation days, or where, you've seen these young people come in as a immature 17 or 18-year-old, and then all of a sudden, after 4 years, they feel good about themselves. They've got a college degree. We've helped them, hopefully, with their next stage of their life. And so that's where it all comes full circle. And those stories are all told in December and May around commencement. I wish those stories would be more prominent, but it's really up to the institution to drive that and tell the stories, where there are videos that are produced that talk about soccer players' experience and what that meant to the University of Georgia. So we've tried to push out as much as we can, and if you went to georgiadogs.com right now, you would see a tremendous amount of video content, a tremendous amount of what these kids do in addition to athletics, and try to tell the story. So, I think our base is aware of all the good that's going on. I'm not really sure those that aren't passionate Georgia fans or fans of college athletics in general pay attention to that, because it's so all the mainstream media is just dominated with all the bad stuff.
And that's today's One Question, brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. One Question is designed to give D1 Ticker subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences. One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996.